So basically what I would like to do is I want to talk a little bit about a topic. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, part of this group, and have an opportunity to talk a little bit and share some thoughts. But also, I want to use that as an opportunity to collect some input, feedback, and things like that. That this journey is super early at this point. I want to just go back in time a little bit and talk a little bit about how everything started in our journey towards using Kata for agile transformations. It might actually sound ironic that, and I don't want to generalize necessarily, but based on our work we have done with clients, we have noticed that there's a large number of organizations that go towards an agile process, but are using a waterfall process for their agile transformation. So that was one of the key findings in the beginning. It's like we're trying to establish an environment that is agile, but we're using a waterfall system to get us there. Something was not right. That was obviously many years ago. There are a lot of organizations out there that go out there with a cookie cutter solution. And they say, here's our path, our journey. We would like to take you to an agile organization. Not waterfall necessarily, but it's a cookie cutter solution. Also something we would say in an agile community, which is really based on inspection and adaptation. That was kind of weird. Also, sometimes the agile transformation came top down from executive leadership. So it felt like command and control. When some executives would say, I want this to be executed in a particular way. I'm engaging a person or a company, and the agile transformation is being implemented, right? Also another moment of hiccup for us was that somebody said, when is this agile transformation over? Right. So that is also something in a context of agile. It's like, why would it be over? This is just a continuation of the process. It depends on how far you want to take this in terms of agility. So Joakim, to your introduction, do I know a lot about of agile? Probably not, right? At this point, if you're just assuming what else is out there, there is a lot to acquire. But as of right now, I would say there's a good moment to talk about agile practices. So when we're looking at processes out there, one of the early attempts was, let's go with Scrum, for example, right? So I'm a professional Scrum trainer. I do agile coaching certifications, all these things. So why not using Scrum to roll out Scrum? But we also bumped into some issues here. Who's the product owner, for example? That was a topic, right? There is a team, and some of those things just didn't really apply in this way. And then I bumped into the work of Kata. And I have to say that that was the starting point for going deeper. And it has occupied me since then, because there were some things in it that really is intriguing for agile transformations. And that's what I would like to talk a little bit about here with you. So when I look at this chart here, for example, I think everybody's familiar with this. You guys know much more about the Kata world than I do. But what we have noticed is when we started thinking about how can we apply, for example, the improvement Kata in an agile context, we said, like, okay, that is a great core for us. The improvement Kata is the core. It has it has all the stepping stones for what we need. But we felt like we have to give organizations something too, in addition to that, to possibly explore how do we, while we're going through Kata thinking, how do we implement agile thinking at the same time? So for example, if somebody would promote a Kata that would, let's say, would have more gates, let's say, I'm not saying that somebody would do that, right? But more gates, or let's do more command and control, that would be somehow leaving an organization behind that is more rigid than before. That would be something we would say that is not in the interest of an agile transformation. So we said we need to have something while we're going through our transformation that is somehow in terms of our, let me just take a pen here quick. In our agile transformation, we would say our challenge has to be somehow associated with the Agile Manifesto. That's our guiding principle in Agile in the first place. So we don't want to go into a direction that would be somehow violating the Agile Manifesto. That these are the guiding principles. There are 12 of those. I don't know if you're familiar with that document. It's on agilemanifesto.org. And there are some 12 principles. So for example, building projects, I'm just going to read this out. I wrote this down as an example here. Build projects around motivated individuals and give them the environment and support they need, and trust and support they need. That would be like one of the statements in the principles, right? So if we are building this Agile culture using a Kata, something like that should be valid, right? So we don't want to compromise that. Then what we also noticed is there's a lot of organizations that go for an Agile transformation. They would say, we're going to go for more productivity, for example. We want to get things done faster. But the Agile Manifesto also reminds us, for example, that continuous attention to technical excellence is important, right? So that somehow is that's a statement that actually takes you back more into quality thinking rather than speed. So we want to have a well-balanced view when we're going after this transformation. Now, when we're going into the experiments, for example, right, when we're looking at our execution, target conditions, current conditions, there are a few things to consider too, right? So what are the metrics we're using? There's a lot of metrics being used in the Kata world. And we just feel like here we want to really anchor evidence-based management into this, because Agile organizations and Agile teams are all about evidence-based metrics, such as what value metrics do we have? What are the benefits to the, let's say, to the customer, rather than just internal metrics. So we're really believing in outcome, in impact, rather than output, right? So we wanted to anchor evidence-based management into this as well. Now, the execution of our experiment should always include techniques out of what we call liberating structures, for example. It's a book. It describes like ways of how to engage employees and groups in an effective way. So it's just an example. So we want to make sure we are using not necessarily only a learner and coach kind of association. We're really working in teams. So Agile transformations is very big. We also work in cross-functional teams on the ground. We would love to have a cross-functional team also in the Agile transformation level. So we're working as a team, as a self-organized team. We would work with Agile leadership principles through our Kata. So we would love to see, for example, I'm just going to throw that out as a term, like an open space. Right? So that is one of the liberating structures where we listen to employees internally of how we want to structure our challenge, but also our next target conditions, right? That would be something to bring in the voices from the entire organization. That is also very important. Why? Because we want to make sure that when people go through the Kata, that we're living the culture of Agile while we're executing that, right? So liberating structures plays that's important role. Evidence-based management to measure, is our Agile transformation going into the right direction for us? Yes or no? There are different kind of anchors here. And we really want to look at the Agile Manifesto as a guiding principle for us to move. That's why we call this the Agile Kata. It is using the improvement Kata as a core. Absolutely, we're using the steps here. There's no question about it. But we are using additional practices to implement agility, to bring the culture of Agile into the execution of the Kata. We find that extremely important. Now, what we have to say, though, is there's tons of tools and techniques that obviously emerge. There are companies out there that are using lots of techniques that could be added to this. There's really obviously an open spectrum and a list of techniques that could be included here. The liberating structures is not only the only one, but they would be in sync with Agile guiding principles. Yeah, so what really is interesting now when we're starting working with clients, for example, Yamaha is one of the clients that are starting to implement the Kata. Some of the clients, it's too soon for me to mention them on a recorded call right now. There are some companies in the United States that are really using Kata now for their Agile transformation. We're seeing a ton of downloads of the Kata white paper. So there is an appetite for organizations that are feeling our agile transformation is not going into the right direction. We're looking at other ways of doing that, and they're looking at the Kata as a possible thing. Now, the one intriguing thing for Kata is that it can start at any given moment, right? So it's not like, please abandon whatever you have done for the last years in your agile transformation and start with Kata. It's like, it actually can start today. So it's not like something that is interrupting or undoing what an organization had been doing until then. So that is a powerful tool in the Kata. So we can even use that in an organizational unit, and we're just going to experiment with some of those things, and then we move on to another piece. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with in an agile transformation is, we're not talking about a team here. We're not talking about how to convert a team to agile. That is, we're talking about, for example, how do I deal with procurement processes within an organization so I can bring vendors on more effectively to perform agile work? What is my onboarding procedure for an HR team? So we're not only bringing on talent into our organization, but we're bringing talent on that can work with agile teams. So this is the handshake between teams when they are working with each other. So that is a key differentiation here. We're not dealing with a single team. I guess you could still use it for a single team, right? Use a Kata for improvement. I could also see a benefit of using Kata ongoingly for Kata for implementing retrospective ideas. I could totally see that too. But right now, the Kata, as it stands right now, we're really interested in providing a tool with the Kata to organizations to say, here's a tool for you to experiment, to get your agile transformation on, listen to the voices of your employees, possible customers and stakeholders as well, have group decision-making, and really move your transformation into a new direction. We are noticing when we are polling with our clients, there's some frustration in existing agile transformation. So there's a huge appetite for this. And the easy thing is, it's an easy sell, because you can start at any time. It's not necessarily rhythmic, like Scrum, where you have 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, you have this rhythm. So it makes more sense to possibly have a longer approach to something in HR that you would have in a different part of the organization. You can take a break if you want, and then restart a Kata. So there's a lot of things at your fingertips that are very intriguing for an agile transformation. And that's also one of the reasons why we, for example, submitting topics now to the Agile conference in Nashville. We really want to bring Kata thinking into the Agile community. I think there's a huge benefit. And I also see an opportunity for you guys to, possibly provide input into that Kata. So I'm more than happy for you guys to reach out and see if we're in the early stages. We work with some clients right now to really go into the Kata thinking. And just to give you one challenge that we're facing right now is really to break transformational work down into very small target conditions and experiments. But that is a challenge on the transformational work. How to break down, let's say, an HR topic I just mentioned, or procurement, down into something very small and go after that. That is a challenge we have seen also some clients. So, but I'm sure there are techniques. So we keep learning through events like this and see what's out there that we can utilize for us as well.